Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Suzerain Kingdom of Rizia, where I, I went back and checked the message that popped up in the beginning of the last episode, and yeah, it does appear that the DLC the DLC takes your decisions from the original, uh, and and changes the story based on it. I'm not sure how much or how important those changes are. Hopefully not, well, hopefully a lot, but because that'd be more interesting. But I would, that would be a shame because I no longer have the previous save file. Unfortunately, if I had known, I probably should have checked before I delete, before I started a new save file and deleted everything else. That was a stupid mistake from me. But yeah, that's a note for next time. Whenever I do another Suzerain run, um, don't delete the save file before starting the Kingdom of Rizia DLC, or do the Kingdom of Rizia DLC in the same save file. But no use, no use crying about things we cannot alter. Political overview with the Grand Vizier. The stairway to the Royal Council chambers was longer than I remembered. I took a moment to catch my breath in front of the carved oak doors. Hurry up, father, it's not very kingly of you to be late. A wizard is never late or early. Hey, you're wrong. It's very kingly of me to show up whenever I want. And just give me a second. After collecting my thoughts, I pushed open the door and walked in. I'd only been here once or twice. I gazed up at the high domed ceiling with its skylight and shone down into the center of the room. Below it, a tall black red velvet chair towered over an oval mahogany table. To my slight surprise, the room was empty except for one man, my uncle. When Hugo saw me, he sprang to his feet. Welcome, Your Majesty. No need to stand on ceremony with me, Hugo. Please sit. Hugo sat down with a smile. You'll meet everyone else soon enough, but I thought a private chat with your Grand Vizier would be in order first. His eyes traveled the doorway where Vino was still standing. Although it seems it won't be as private as I was expecting. Are you straying, Priestess Vina? My daughter gave a shy nod. Yes, Uncle Hugo. I'm sitting in on the King's Council meetings. It's unorthodox, I know, but future kings should have the same privilege as future kings. I mean, I'd rather she go to college, but fine. Hugo frowned as he processed the new information, then broke into a smile. By all means, then, Your Highness, have a seat. Vina walked over to the table as I made my way to the red velvet chair. Once we were all seated, I turned to my uncle. How have you been? Busy. Managing the royal transition is a full-time job in itself. Between that and visits to Rico in Isa, I haven't had a day off since the funeral. As I listened to him, my eyes drifted towards the black wall. It was covered in portraits of Rizia's previous kings, including a newly painted likeness of my father. My dead brother, I do miss him, but I dare say, it's time we had some fresh blood on the throne. As Valero never got the chance to fill you in on his royal duties before he passed, I prepared an overview for you. Would you like to hear it? Please. As the king, you're both Rizia's head of state and commander of its armed forces, as well as the de jure governor of the Rizia Imperi, Valencuris, and Palace Administrative District, and the island of Calacabis. Like your father and grandmother before you alone have the power to shape this country by passing royal decrees. As is tradition over hundreds of years, each new ruler has passed the sovereign transition and clemency decree to start their new reign. The kingdom will be expecting your decree very soon. Uh, troubles me that a single person can hold that much power. I am as fallible as anyone else. That's what your advisors are for, my nephew. Hugo reached for a neatly rolled parchment lying on the grand table. With deliberate movements, he unrolled it, revealing the prepared royal decree. The intricate script and the seal of Rizia glinted under the chandelier's light. I and the rest of the Royal Council will advise you to the best of our ability and put forth decrees and state decisions for your approval. Ultimately, the King has the final say. However, you should not neglect the House of Delegates, the Legislative Assembly. My brother set up to appease the opposition after the uprising. It was one of his better ideas. I thought so as well. It gave Rizia the appearance of a constitutional democracy while keeping power firmly in the hands of the king. Will we be able? Will we be able to do democratic reforms this time? His Majesty Valero presided over the last elections in 1949. The Rizian National Coalition secured a House majority, as always. They propose decrees and issue official approvals or disapprovals of the laws passed by you and Council. As Grand Vizier, it's traditional for me to attend their sessions and pass any relevant information on to you. I mean, I'm head of government. I'm head of state, not head of government. Well, I'm both, and and that's the thing. There is some arguments like in here in Portugal, the head of government and the head of state are separate. There are some benefits to doing it that way, but at least the way we done it here, the head of state is mostly a ceremonial position. Uh, I'm not sure. I mean, I know how I feel about government, but within the specific characteristics of having a government, I'm not sure whether it's better um, to have the same person be head of state and government, or if it's better to have it separate. I'm leaning on separate, even though, again, like I said, the head of state ends up being a mostly ceremonial position. Um, yeah, why can't I attend? I mean, I have better things to do, but I want to be in touch with my populace. The sessions can be quite long and tedious, Your Majesty. The King's time is better spent on other matters. With that said, I would advise you to take the delegates' input into account. No good can come of ignoring the will of the people. Um, do the delegates really represent the will of the people, or just that of the nobility? Hugo made a tutting sound. Don't do not discount the importance of the nobility to this kingdom, my nephew. Keep them satisfied, and commoners' lives will be better for it. But if you want a self-styled man of the people, look no further than the opposition. More specifically, to their new leader, Manus Sazon, Rizian People's Party. Is he a Malianavist? I'm not going to read all of this. Hugo scanned the face closely as he spoke the name. Um, the traitor's son. Okay, who's this? Who is his father? Uh, Lucas Sazon. Okay, now who who the fuck is his father? The name is kind of ringing a bell, but I don't remember. Fuck this. The position elected a Sazon? Not just any Sazon. You know, Duke Lucas Sazon was executed for his role in your kit. Oh, that guy. in her kidnapping and the 1926 uprising, while his wife Angelica was sent to exile in Calacabees. While she remains under strict orders not to leave the island, no such restrictions were placed on the son she gave birth to shortly after her arrival. He opened the folder and took out a picture of a clean cut young man. Vina leaned forward to peer at it. Upon finishing his studies in Kirut, Manus returned to the mainland and proceeded to win the largest supporter base of any opposition leader we've seen thus far. His promises to give voice to the common man seemed to be resonating with the populace, part of it at least. I'd like to meet this fellow, see if he truly believes in what he's saying. You'll get your chance. Hugo closed the folder. While I'm on the subject, a word about our houses. House Taurus? Our family currently controls the province of Valenqueris as well as the city-state of Isa. How's Valenqueris doing now that I've left? Stable as always. With you on the throne, me as Grand Vizier Enrico in Isa, the government seat has been filled by Hubertus, a distant cousin of ours. Of course, Princess Vina is eligible to take his place as the reigning Duchess. He nodded at my daughter. In a few years, maybe. I still don't feel ready. You're already smarter than I was when I became Duke, but it's your decision. Vina blushed. Thank you, Father. Hugo tapped his fingers on the table. In any case, Your Majesty, I don't expect any trouble in Valankris during your reign. It remains the wealthiest of Rizia's provinces and the least affected by crime. Make sure their lives don't get any less comfortable, and the locals there will stay loyal to you. I don't like the way that sounds. From what I've been hearing, the PR campaign you spearheaded over the last years endeared you to them greatly. Keep up the good work. How about Isa? Has Rico been well received as Duke? Hugo's face hardened. Isa has been difficult since the Sazon Rebellion, even more so now that the native Rizians are in danger of being crowded out by migrants. Ah. I really don't like these guys. I like his son less, but considering the circumstances, I believe my son's doing just fine. Suomin is still based there. Yes, and I shudder to think what Isa would be like without it. Ah, of course, the fucking fascists are. Ah, what about Rizzi and Perry? We control that too, don't we? Yes, Port Drazon and its metropolitan area are controlled by the central government and therefore House Taurus. We don't need to worry about pleasing our house in this region, though it's more crucial to retain the favor of the major corporations that are based there. Uh, and if our economy takes a hit, another uprising won't be far behind. Precisely. The Palace Administrative District is also under the jurisdiction of Rizia and Perry. Once we reclaimed it in the since we reclaimed it in the early 20s. Got it, that's all. Hugo nodded approvingly. As for the other houses, House Sazon, as aside from Isa, which is now under Rico's governance, all of Brennas is still their territory. The nobles there swore fealty to the crown in exchange for keeping a hold of their cities and their estates. I am inclined to give Sazon back Isa if they cleanse the fascists. Well, maybe cleanse is not the best word. Purge. Purge is softer, sure. But the return of Angelica's boy could test that loyalty. He is the rightful Duke after all, even if he does not admit it. Um, we cannot be a Duke and claim to represent democratic. Sure, let's go with this. And claim to represent democratic values at the same time. Contradiction, isn't it? He discouraged his fellow delegates from using the title, but has yet to officially renounce it. As for Angelica herself, she remains in exile, as she should. Um, if Angelica is in exile and Manus has not laid claim to the Duke position, who's officially in charge of Brennis now? Hugo checked his notes. A lesser relation by the name of Leona. She reigns from Slaves. But it is Manus and Angelica that the rest of the Sazons take their cues from. Lest we forgot, Velen is scheduled to return Zilla to Rizia next year, The citizens expect the region to become part of their province, as it was before the uprising. I can use it. Yeah, I can use it as a bargaining chip. Stay loyal to the crown, or no Zilla for House Hazan. Now you're thinking like a king. And finally, House of Zaro. Precisely, the rulers of Cardes Monteclar and the stewards of the Rizian military. You must be aware of their patriarch Thaddeus's poor health. The general suffered a stroke shortly after King Valero's death. Yes, a shame I never got to know him. His daughter Lucida, the Duchess of Monteclar, volunteered to take his place as war and security counselor. You'll meet her later today. You should know. You should also know that factions within their province have begun calling for the return of Pallas again. Uh, yeah, Pallas hasn't been part of Rizia for over a century. It's a lost cause. No matter your feelings on the subject, I'd advise you to take the house's concerns seriously. Hugo glanced at the clock. Well, hope that was helpful. One more thing. As you're aware, a few years before your father's death, he reinstated the Golden Guard. Right, personal security of my father. And where are they now? Here, sir, ready and able. For the first time, I noticed a man standing in the corner of the room. He was wearing a tight fitting gold blazer that barely concealed his muscular physique. Okay, the fact that I didn't notice the motherfucker concerns me. Either I'm not very aware, or I've been trained to not see the helpless people. Meet Titus Gordian, captain of the Golden Guard. He and his men have been keeping a close watch on you since the coronation. Pleased to meet you, Captain Gordian. Call me Titus, sir. Titus and his dozen men have been trained in the upper echelons of Rizia's elite military and police academies. Each has sworn an oath to protect the king and his family at all costs. Yeah, what's with the costumes? Wouldn't plainclothes bodyguards be more effective? It sends a signal that you are well protected, sir. My predecessors wore solid gold breastplates. He bowed to Vina. She looked a little flustered. Didn't Queen Liza discontinue the Golden Guard because she thought they made royals look elitist and because she trailed off? Because she thought they were getting too powerful. It's why our current force is less than a third of the size it once was. My father always had a fondness for reason tradition, so he spared no expense in bringing the guard back, albeit in a reduced form. It humbles me to be worthy of such an elite unit's protection. Sure, humility is all mine, sir. Thank you, Titus. You may wait outside the chambers until the meeting's conclusion. Titus nodded and swiftly left the room. Noon already. Shall we and the young heiress break for a glass of wine before the council convenes this afternoon? Another time, Your Grace. I look forward to it. Thank you for the offer anyway, Uncle Hugo. My pleasure. He turned to look Vina in the eye. I know how overwhelming the move from the capital can be, Your Highness. If you ever need someone to talk to, remember you can always come to me. Vina smiled politely. That's very kind of you, Uncle Hugo. Yes, too kind. Offers of advice from me? I wouldn't presume to know better than you, Your Majesty. But of course, you can always come to me with questions as well. Vina finished jotting down a few notes. The three of us packed up and left for the morning. I really don't like that side of the family. Notice our oil field on the verge of depletion. That's not good. Unveiling the legacy of the Resident Empire. Coal deposits suspect in Havas. Okay, might take the sting off losing the oil supply, but I should have took some time to diversify the economy. Methinks. Royal decrees. Sovereign transition and clemency. Kingdom solely affirms transition to the crown. Yada yada yada. extends royal pardon to 500 individuals convicted of minor offenses. Sure. That's -1 authority. And housing for the poor initiative. 2 people are against it. 2 for and 1 neutral. Guaranteeing housing for every citizen. Yes. Excavation of Topaz Ancient Resonant City. Boost the tourism industry. Historical restoration, resurrect historical sites, yada yada yada. Renaissance of cultural pride, yada yada yada. Okay, -2 authority, -2 budget. About 2 turn. It'll take about 2 turns and give us +2 tourism. Sure. That seems like a good idea long term. We're low on authority, but we get +5 every turn. So, introductory briefing from the Royal Council. It was late afternoon when Vina and I headed back to the chambers for the first council meeting. It was a hot day and I felt drained from the morning meeting. I was glad I'd refused Hugo's offer of wine. As we crossed the palace gardens, I had the feeling I was being watched. Suddenly I noticed a young man standing next to the path. His face matched the photograph Hugo had showed me that morning. Duke Sazon, I presume. He smiled nervously. I hold no land, Your Majesty, but you may use the title if you wish. It's good to see you here in Port Trazon. That's crimes of the father and all that. Let's not blame the child. He tugged at his suit lapel. I wanted to introduce myself before our first official meeting. I may be the leader of the opposition, but I'm not your enemy. If you and I establish a dialogue, I believe we can work wonders for this country. Vina gave him an encouraging smile. How lovely of you to say that. I'm Vina Torres, by the way. He resisted the urge to laugh. I know, a pleasure to make your acquaintance. I'm not interested in your proposition, but you'll have to request a formal audience. Yeah, I'm not interested in your proposition, but you'll have to request a formal audience with me like everyone else. I understand. Looking forward to it, Your Majesty. Your Highness? Vina waved as we walked away. He seems nice. He's friendlier than I expected. I could imagine working together. And if they marry, it will be a powerful alliance. We continued towards the council chambers. Oddly enough, I still felt like someone had their eyes on us. I looked back just long enough to see a flash of gold, Titus, of course. We entered the chambers where Ugo was already waiting for us. No sooner had we sat down than a brief rap came at the door. Without waiting for an answer, Lucita Azaro rushed in. The new War and Security Counselor was younger than I'd imagined. She carried herself a mix of regal elegance and soldierly authority. Gentlemen, pardon my interruption. She in uniform? No, just military green. She bowed towards me. Please accept House Cesaro's formal congratulations on your coronation, Your Majesty. I motioned for her to stand. Her eyes were fixated on my uncle's shirt as she raised herself. Hugo, Your Grace, your shirt's buttoned wrong. My uncle looked chastised. Oh, hello, Princess Vina, Your Majesty. May I ask what your daughter is doing here? Ask her yourself, Duchess Cesaro. Oh, excuse me, what brings you to these chambers, Your Highness? She gave Vina a broad smile. Please don't mind me, Duchess Cesaro. I'm only here as an observer. Lucita's eyes darted at the door. The king and his direct successor spending so much time in the same room. I hope the Golden Guard knows what's at stake in keeping these chambers secure. General Thaddeus sends his regards, or he would if he were capable of speaking in full sentences. She was trying to be flippant, but I could sense some emotion behind her words. Can't be easy. This must be a difficult time for you. Let me know if there is anything I can do. The corners of her mouth twitched downward. I'm not a porcelain doll, Your Majesty. My ability to perform my duties is in no way compromised. That's not what I meant. The others should be right behind me. As if on cue, I heard the voices of Elena Werner and Lorenzo Escobel, my treasurer and the Counselor of Foreign Affairs. For God's sake, Lorenzo, you don't need to hold the door open for me every single time. I'm not as fragile as I look. I keep telling you, how could I allow a door to close on such a gorgeous face? As the two senior counselors stepped in, they immediately dropped their flirtatious routine and assumed a look of defense. Lorenzo smoothly removed his fedora, revealing a well-oiled mane of grey hair. Your Majesty, it is a pleasure and an honor to serve on your council. Elena nodded briskly. Despite her grandmotherly experience, her demeanor was all business. Your reputation precedes you, Your Majesty. I've heard marvelous things about the work you did in Valenqueris. Sure, let's kiss ass. Let's keep the council on my side. No need for flattery. With your years of experience, I'm the one who should be bowing down to both of you. That's far too kind of you, Your Majesty, but I hope we old timers can be of some assistance to you. Elena looked fondly at Vina. I'm pleased to see the young heiress here as well. A new Liza the Great in the making. Vina blushed. I wouldn't go that far, but I hope you'll tell me about your time in Queen Liza's court one day. But she's that old? I'd love to. There are just a few updates I've got to share with your father first. Once all the counselors were seated, Hugo began. Thank you all for joining us. I'm pleased to have the entire council here for this first meeting. Well, not the entire council. The Grand Wise Man is in Pavo preparing for the upcoming religious ceremony with His Majesty, but he didn't involve himself in earthly concerns like our royal treasury. He smiled to himself, then gestured to Elena. No, indeed, that's for me to worry about. She put on a pair of half-moon glasses, then reached down into her purse, pulled out a thick leather-bound ledger, and flipped it open. Surely His Majesty already has some awareness regarding the state of Rizia's economy and resources. Yes, but my daughter would appreciate a refresher course. Elena smiled at me. Certainly. I mean, it's important that she's educated in the state of the country. She smoothly adjusted her reading glasses before continuing. Rizia has historically been one of the wealthiest countries in South Macropa, but His Majesty the late King Valero bequeathed us a number of challenges in that department. Where should I start? Tell me about the budget. It is healthy, Your Majesty. Since we began trading with Rumburg, we've been running a surplus. It's not as high as it used to be, but I think we should put it to work. All glory to the late Valero, but he had a certain prudence about spending government funds, even when doing so would have made Rizia richer in the long run. Yeah, no need to sugarcoat it, he was a miser. He had his reasons, I'm sure, but he did miss a number of potential lucrative investment opportunities, including, of course, the opportunity to completely modernize the Rizian military. Elena pursed her lips. With all due respect, Duchess Cesaro, I'm not sure the military is the king's number one focus. Um, it most certainly is not. That money should be spent on the Rizian people, not weapons. I agree, Your Majesty. I think the advances we were both able to make during the Liza era were due to the king's investments in citizen welfare. You'll recall her famous quote, "True prosperity is not defined by the amount of gold in our coffers, but by the health and happiness of each soul within our borders." Um, Truer words have never been spoken. Vina beamed. Hugo nodded in agreement. I will point out that Rizia's wealth and my mother's judicious handling of it was one of the factors that allows us to survive the century of revolutions. However, those were different times. As a modern nation in an era of increasing superpower influence, we are expected to have a certain standard of military. Uh, yeah, other countries might compete to have the biggest guns, not Rizia. It's not about big guns, Your Majesty. It's about being prepared for any eventuality, and I will take that into account. But it's not a priority. Your enthusiasm is heartening, Duchess Azaro. I'm sure you'll have much more advice to share during your own briefing. Any further questions, Your Majesty? What's been going on with the gold? Well, Your Majesty, gold is still in the backbone of the Rizian economy, though production has declined as our reserves begin to exhaust themselves. We have a number of active mines within the country operated by the Rizian Royal Gold Corporation. She and Ugo exchanged glances. And unfortunately, we cannot talk about Rizian Royal Gold without talking about its CEO. Why unfortunately? Your uncle never could countenance the presence of Rosello Montoro, but we can't mine gold in this country without him. Mr. Montoro, Rusty, Rusty currently owns 70% of Rizian Royal Gold. Uh, I don't think the royals should be in charge. I think the government should be in charge, but in this case, we're one and the same. As much as I respect Rusty, I believe we royals should be in charge of our own gold mines. That will be difficult, Your Majesty. He looked at Elena. Rusty's first move after taking over the company was to sue your father's government for loss of revenue connected to the Zilla handover. And after a very lengthy back and forth, it was agreed the kingdom's share in RRG be decreased from 45 to 30%. Rizia should not own 30 or 45%. The entire company should be nationalized. It's not that simple. The patent for RRG's proprietary mining technology was filed in Ventry City, Arcasia, and most of its financial assets are kept in Kirut. In other words, attempting to nationalize the company without Mr. Montoro's express approval would strip it of its value. She adjusted her glasses before continuing. RRG might control mining within Rizia, but the royal government is a direct stakeholder in the Meftium International Trade Zone. She unrolled a map on the table and pointed to a region in the east of Morello. The double blow of losing our mines in Zilla and the 15% of our RRG stake has made us quite reliant on the gold from the MITZ. Lorenzo stroked his mustache. It was established shortly before you joined the Royal Council, was it not, Elena? I heard negotiations between Rizia, Valgsland, Lespia, and Morella took over a year. Can we increase our mining efforts within Rizia to make up for the loss? We can try. There are a number of promising sites that have yet to be explored. And if we increase mining, that will hopefully be good for employment. We would need to give Rizian Royal Gold permission to begin excavation, which might involve the expropriation or destruction of noble property depending on where the mines are located. I saw Hugo wince at that remark. When we get Zilla back, will we get back its gold as well? I mean, probably not the gold they've mined during this time. Rumberg will take that, but any future gold? Certainly hope so. Velen has been mining extensively in the region since taking over in 1927. So there's a chance that when we get Velen back, when we get Zilla back without any issues, that the gold mines would be depleted then. But as per the terms of our agreement, Zilla and all of the resources therein will return to Rizian ownership in 1952. And at the time of our last survey, there was much more than 30 years worth of gold in the ground there. Doesn't mean that they haven't boosted mining operations. How much say does the government have over the operations in the MITZ? A fair amount. Any changes to regulations or profit shares have been agreed on by all four nations involved. Have to be agreed on by all four nations involved. RRG gets a percentage of the MITZ profits for the use of its technology, but we can make decisions without Mr. Montoro's input. That's it for our discussion on gold. Shall we move on? What about our energy holdings? Elena rubbed her hands together. Very gladly, Your Majesty. This is a new area for us compared to gold, but the financial possibilities are intriguing indeed. She pointed at the map in front of her, this time directing our attention to the southern coast of Valenquerus. Though our state energy company is called Rizia Oil and Gas, production of the former has slowed over the years and is threatening to come to a complete halt. The latter, however, shows immense potential. Our most productive gas field is Esquiris, off the coast of Topaz. Assuming enough money is invested onto its expansion, we can expect it to fuel our kingdom for years to come. Or we can send our budget elsewhere as we wait for access to the new field south of Kalakabis. Careful, Miss Werner, one shouldn't count one's pheasants before they've been bagged. Yeah, wouldn't that put the field close to Palace? It would, wouldn't it? Lorento gave me a significant look. Exactly, Your Majesty. Miss Werner, tell him. Well, we're still in the extremely early stages, but we may have at least a part of a claim to a substantial reserve of natural gas between the port of Palace and the Rizian island of Calacabis. Um, so if we say we give them full claim in exchange for them becoming an autonomous zone under the Rizian crown, is that something that I can offer them? Um, we should keep. We should proceed very carefully with this. We don't want a gas dispute in our hands. Wise words, Your Majesty. Our researchers have been investigating the field's size and borders. Once those are known, it will be easy to determine ownership. Of course, we are liaising extremely closely with Palace to avoid misunderstandings. As we should, nobody wants a repeat of the last conflict. Um, sure, no need to antagonize her. If the Grand Duchy does not provoke us, we will not provoke them. Lucida nodded. As much as my family is clamoring for a repeat of the Palace campaign, I think it's best to ignore them. Of course, if Palace shows hostility towards us, we will react in kind, but Rizia should not be the first to resort to aggression. Vina tentatively raised her hand. I don't know why we're even discussing a military response. We'll surely be able to reach a compromise using proper diplomacy. You're right, Vita. Does Cesaro save the military talk for your own briefing? I mean, no, I don't think this is the correct lesson. I think she's being naive, but uh, I, I I don't like the options. In real life, there's always a winner and a loser. Time to grow up, my daughter. Oh, but Helena gently cut in. We should save this discussion for if and when we know more about the gas field in question. For now, are there any other questions? How much of our revenue comes from taxes? Historically, our resource based economy has allowed us to have some of the lowest tax rates in the continent. It's been a real boom for businesses. The central government does not just collect a flat income tax of 10%. This is mostly paid by workers since nobles have no income to speak of. Yeah, that's. Ah, yes, the death tax. Something that is incredibly fair and should definitely exist, but the words death tax have completely killed it. Ah, doesn't seem fair, low-earning workers paying taxes while nobles don't. I don't make the rules, Your Majesty. They were proposed by the House of Delegates and agreed on by your father. 10% tax is a low price for commoners to pay for the privilege of living and working in the best country in Mercopa. I mean, 10% is a lot for the lowest income, and not enough for the highest income. And our family's investments power half of Rizia's businesses anyway. Why ask us to pay double? Um, Nobles only got the money for those investments by siphoning it up from hardworking commoners. Is it our responsibility to break the cycle somehow? Hugo looked at me strangely. It is our responsibility to make wise choices with the money we have. Dwelling on how we came to have it accomplishes nothing. In terms of our province's individual contributions, the GDP in Valencuris is off the charts thanks to the wine, gas, and tourism industries. Brenas is still suffering the effect of the loss of Isa and Zilla, however, it's made advances in shipping and agriculture alongside its coal mines. The manufacturing concerns in Cardes and Monteclar are doing very well to the point that councils are complaining about an imminent shortage of skilled workers. A shortage of Rizian workers, Elena. Those vacancies could easily be filled with migrants from Velen and Derdia. That is a slippery slope, Sir Esquipon. Are you familiar with Rizia's two-tier employment system, Your Majesty? Please explain it to me. After the Velen Civil War, we began granting labor hand visas to Vezek migrants and a smaller number of Derdians. Labor hands may accept employment by Rizian industries, but they don't have the right to social security or other benefits. And there is a cap on how much they are allowed to earn. That is bullshit. They now make up most of our blue-collar workforce with higher paid jobs held by native Rizians, as well as smaller number of lesbians, Valkslandians, and Rumburgians. The program did wonders for the economy when King Valerio initiated it, but as a result we now have millions of workers in this country who are being treated like second-class citizens. Uh, yeah, they should have the same working rights as their Rizian counterparts, especially if they're paying taxes. Rizia offered Vezek's asylum when other countries did not. There must be some limit to our generosity. Dire financial situations by forcing them to work, apologize. Yeah, taking advantage. I mean, this is what I want to say, but this is not what's going to convince him. This might convince, but yeah, let's go with what I want to say. Taking advantage of migrants' dire financial situations by forcing them to work of low wages is hardly generosity. I will add that from a security standpoint, allowing migrants to earn more money would curb the kind of black market activities that have been taking place in the cities like Isa. Do not fear the delusion of Rizian cultures and values, Dutch Lazaro, or the infiltration of Das Nurists and Golcondists into our Ruhakist society. She shrugged. Society has changed, Your Grace, and I don't recall these concerns being raised about the Rumburgians who moved here after our alliance. Well put, Duchess. I can already tell you're going to be a brilliant addition to this council. Yeah, she's surprisingly level-headed, considering she comes from the military faction. Thank you, Your Majesty. I saw a smile play across her lips. Hugo stayed silent. Elena looked uneasily at the three of us. She tapped a pencil on the table. We seem to have veered off track. Can we get back to our questions about the economy? Well, that's all the information I need for now. Perfect, Your Majesty. Elena glanced down at her notes, her expression competitive. I'd like to discuss several economic considerations. We should anticipate potential expenses arising from our impending fiscal policies. Please elaborate. The first point to consider is industrial growth. I am all for expanding production and construction, but we should make sure that that we have the energy to keep our facilities humming. Secondly, there's the matter of living standards. Improving the quality of life for our citizens naturally leads to higher administrative expenditures. Thirdly, if you do decide to listen to Duchess Azaro and expand our defense capabilities, keep in mind that the cost of upkeep for our armed forces will rise accordingly. Lastly, energy management poses its own challenges. As we approach the limits of our grid's capacity, we may incur additional storage costs. This information is invaluable, Anna. I appreciate your insights. Frankly, I'm glad to see you taking such an interest in our financials. Between myself and the House of Delegates, we were able to keep everything running smoothly in the absence of clear guidance from your father. But with a king of your caliber at the helm, there's no telling how high we can soar. History shall know me as Rome as the fiscally responsible. No. uh, your hard work during my father's decline is to be commended. Thank you. It was indeed quite the stressful time for everyone. I think that's enough for today, but we will have to come to a decision regarding the development of our resources. Gold is where most of our profits are coming from today, and it holds a special place in our history. But I maintain that natural gas would be a more fruitful investment. And I think we should maintain we should diversify should diversify an economy and not rely on resource extraction. 'Cause that's not going to last forever. Uh, hint, hint. Look at Saudi Arabia right now. Hint, hint. I'll let you think about it, Your Majesty. Thank you, Miss Werner. This was indeed enlightening. A pleasure to finally share these chambers with you, King Romus. Yes, I'm looking forward to our upcoming security briefing. And congratulations on surviving your first council meeting, Your Highness. I found it fascinating, Your Grace. They smiled at each other, not altogether sincerely. My counselors left. I sat for a few more moments reflecting on what Elena and the others had said. And so that's our economic situation. Plavo, our sanctuary, deemed safe for ceremony. Festivities underway for consecration. Okay. What's new? Affordable housing initiative. Good. What's in the news? Grand ceremony ready. City Port Trazon honors King Ramos. Topaz to be restored to former glory. Rights to housing enshrined. RRG CEO speaks out against proposed mining regulations. Coronation party at Isa Palace marred by hooliganism. That's not great. Rufus Gragg's royal gossip. Coronation fashion edition. King Romus crowned in grand ceremony. United Cantona suppresses protests in South. That's not great. Occasion armed forces advanced in South China. Yeah, South Xena. Xena, not China. Definitely not China. Rizian coronation raises questions. Who is Romus Taurus? But that is going to be it for this episode. Thank you all very much for watching. Please do remember to like, comment, and indeed subscribe. As always, I have been Pope, and I will see you all next time.